Greetings. My name is Caroline Routh, and I am an Olson Scholar at American University's School of International Service. Today I will be discussing my research titled Unveiling the Invisible Discourse: How Ballet's Racial Hierarchy Remained Hidden for 200 Years. In particular, I am looking to understand two questions that demonstrate a change in discourse over time. How was it possible for ballet to present racial neutrality? And how did the racial hierarchy discourse finally emerge? My project's theoretical foundation lies in three key groupings, as you see here in this diagram, with researchers who have examined puzzles like mine. My project lies in the intersection of these three groups. The first group, titled Racial, Cultural, and Ethnic Boundaries, contains the work of Charles Tilly, Frederick Barth, and several others. This group takes an anthropological approach for understanding race relations and hierarchies in societies on the whole. This knowledge is valuable for my basic understanding of racial hierarchies and their applications in the ballet world. The second group, called Ballet in the Context of Dance, includes pieces by Joanne Kiliano-Homoku, Brenda Dixon Gottschild, and others. This group discusses the many ways that ballet establishes itself as a dominant dance form. This is essential for my understanding of what makes ballet exclusive and what groups exactly are excluded from the historical discourse, notably non-white people. The third and final group is explicit displays of racial representation, with scholars such as Deidre Sklar and Sansan Kwan cited. This group attempts to break open the mostly closed discourse about racial hierarchy in ballet by examining how non-white races are represented in both indigenous and Western concert dance forms, which are the subgroups of this category. My research builds upon these theories by expanding the discourse to include the actors that are not seen and heard explicitly. I will be taking an interpretivist discourse analysis approach to this project. My justifications for this decision are that I have significant cultural competence surrounding the context of the topic, having danced for 17 years and 2 years professionally. So using reflexivity as an evaluative standard accounts for the potential biases I carry as a researcher. Since I am researching the nuances of dance, being able to use text broadly defined as opposed to simply scholarly articles improves intertextuality and evidence exposure that can't be achieved in other methodologies. Interpretivist discourse analysis also accounts for elastic or changing discourses in a field of study. Finally, framing my research question with how possible as opposed to why allows me to observe how meanings are produced and attached to actors and representations. I will be researching the official discourses about neutral race representations in Russian ballet. As you see here, there are three periods of representation in this discourse. The images I have on this slide are all from the ballet La Bayadère demonstrated through the times. The first image is from St. Petersburg, Russia in the 19th century when the ballet was first performed. You will notice that all three dancers are white Europeans presenting themselves as Indian royalty. Since Indian and other non-white people were not welcome in the ballet world during the 19th century and cultural appropriation was not recognized as an issue, the discourse regarding racial hierarchy in the dance world with white Europeans above all others was closed and invisible to the outsider. The next image is from a social media post made in 2019. You will see that these Russian dancers are dressed in blackface for their performance of La Bayadère. This post was faced with significant backlash from followers in Western Europe and the United States, where race has slowly become an important opening discourse as racial equality and equity progress. However, Russian ballet takes a traditionalist stance when it comes to racial representations on stage. By keeping these presentations the same over 200 years, they do not succumb to the present-day societal expectations that blackface is unacceptable due to the widening discourse that includes Black populations. This boldness maintains their edge in the dance world as a leading producer in ballet excellence. The final image is from a present-day performance of La Bayadere, featuring American Ballet Theater principal dancer Misty Copeland. Misty is an interesting case because she is both an actor and a representation of the discourse. She's a dancer in these racially insensitive ballets, but her presence on stage unveils the invisible discourse. This is an example of you do not see what is missing until it is staring at you in the face. In other words, dancers of color missing from the ballet world isn't noticeable to white people until there is one black dancer in a sea of white and painted black faces. This causes audience members and other actors to ask themselves, why is this the case? Thus opening and uncovering the 200-year-old invisible discourse. I have addressed the interpretivist evaluative standards with reflexivity and trustworthiness. As I mentioned before, I have significant cultural competence in the field, which helps me to co-generate evidence with broadly defined texts. My incredible resources at a top 10 university for international studies help me with intertextuality because I have access to materials not available to most people. Finally, asking myself whose representations, whose culture, keeps my own biases in check. Moving forward, there are many areas where my research process can improve. First, I need to cast my net of reading wider than the sources I have already used, so that I have better exposure to more perspectives, which in turn will help with discourse mapping. Taking a closer look at predication when double reading will help expose the hidden discourse through writing, not simply by images. I also invite any and all advice in the comments section following this presentation. The aim of my research is to go deeper than just pointing out racism in ballet, as that does not contribute to any new knowledge about the racial hierarchy in the ballet world. Three main takeaways from my research are as follows. Russia is a rare case of a hegemonic power in the minority in taking a bold traditionalist stance and representing race on stage during productions. Misty Copeland, just by existing as a Black ballerina on stage, is both a representation of the discourse opening and an actor within the discourse. Finally, race neutrality is really just the deeper discourse being concealed by closed access, which is slowly opening to more exposure with time and new actors such as Misty Copeland. This exposure is ushering in a new, more diverse era of ballet, like this young girl who was just cast as the first Black Clara in New York City Ballet's production of The Nutcracker, the first of her kind in history of the company. Thank you for your time today, and I greatly anticipate your feedback.